Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Ice Cream for Everyone podcast. This is your host, Willem Vanderhorst. It's been quite a while since the last episode of the Ice Cream for Everyone podcast. On the other hand, it's the first one of 2017, so Happy New Year, even though it's a little bit late, normally, like more than halfway through January, yes. It's been a month since I last published. December, actually, it's been more than a month. Yes, it has been more than a month. The first rule that you read about publishing podcasts and publishing content online, the most important thing is to be consistent and post consistently with consistent frequency. And of course, December showed up and I completely threw that out the window, threw it out the door completely. I went on holidays in early December and then it was just catching up, and then Christmas was there, and then anyway, I'm back. That's what matters the most. I'm back. There's a lot of news. There's a lot of thinking. There's a lot of things going on in December. Part of the reasons why I didn't post. I've already announced that to the people reading my newsletter. So if you're already reading my newsletter, you probably already know that. But if you don't read my newsletter and if you just follow the podcast, then you might not know that I'm changing a few things. I'm completing my contract as a head of strategy for a creative technology company, Rehab Studio, that are based in London. I've been working with them since last June or so. And yeah, after going on holidays, having a few conversations with them, I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about moving to the States. So I'm off to new adventures. I'm refocusing on Ice Cream for Everyone. That means also for you, refocusing on the podcast and really making sure I keep all my energies on that, keep all my energy on the newsletter, keep all my energy on keep progressing, keep growing it. Want to make sure that I'm improving the quality of the content, improving the quality of the conversations that I'm having. For now, I'm still going to keep it at twice a month, I think. It might change up to 3 or 4 times. We're not exactly sure, but so it's still going to be a little bit cagey on exactly how often I'm publishing, but definitely I'm publishing regularly. I just recorded another episode yesterday and we're getting back on track. I promise you, we're getting back on track. So yeah, going off to the States. I'm starting a new training course that's going to be happening in California. I'm very excited about. I'm going to be writing and developing my own methodologies and material, looking for my own clients for Ice Cream for Everyone. I'm going to be privileging working directly with clients. I'm going to be privileging creating my own content, reports, material, methodologies, market research. So I'm still working on exactly what I'm going to be producing, but I'm going to be redoing some of my website and making those kind of documents available online as well. So that's going to be that. And, more news coming on that soon. What else is going on? So this episode I recorded before last year, a little bit ago, and I'm very excited about that. I came across, so this is an episode with Kelly Rogala and Ian Fraser of the Go Game. The Go Game is based in San Francisco. They're a live games company. I came across them first, as I say in the live episode, in 2009 when I was at South by Southwest. I visited South by Southwest in Austin, the interactive part of the festival. Or conference. I don't know if it's a conference or a festival. It's probably more of a festival. I think it's attracting, the interactive part is attracting 50,000 people or more now. I think it was 50,000 people. It's not as much when I was back in there. Anyway, long story short. So they're going to talk about the Go Game. I was very excited to meet Kelly. I've been participating in a training program with him in Los Angeles. So he introduced me to Ian, and both of them are on the phone. Kelly's a producer for them. So he organizes and runs games. Ian's the founder of the Go Game, and it's a very successful company that organizes games that are live, that there's a proprietary app and you get instructions with your group. You're playing wandering around the streets of a city or neighborhood or an environment that's been predetermined, and you get instructions on your phone and challenges that you have to run through. So it's a awesome version of a team building game. They made team building games awesome for companies. So a lot of individuals participate as well, but it's mostly groups. So, you'll learn everything about the Go Game on there. So I was really excited to talk to them. And really excited to find out more about it. And I'm just going to leave it to them. Ian has some amazing stories, hilarious, amazing stories about what they went through and anecdotes about what happened on different games, and just fascinating and awesome stuff. Now, don't forget, we're back there, and I would love to have more ratings and reviews from you. It makes a hell of a difference if you take a few minutes to leave a review. It allows more people to find the show, and it's usually on iTunes. So if you're on your computer, it's going to be iTunes. You can open up iTunes if you have it, or if you have an iPhone, it's going to be on your podcasting app. That just if you give it a review, that goes straight into iTunes and the review, and I would receive it. And if I have that, then I would read it the next time I'm publishing and the next time I'm recording an intro. I didn't have any new ones this time. Don't forget, you can also find the Ice Cream Sunday email newsletter on the main website. That's at www.icecreamforeveryone.net. Everything spelled out, icecreamforeveryone.net. And you can also find a little bit more about my services, the kinds of stuff that I do for companies in terms of like brand and marketing, communications and strategy. What do I offer? And I'm going to be reworking on some of this as well. So if you have any questions about marketing for your business, just don't hesitate. Send me an email. My email is Willem, WILLEM, @icecreamforeveryone.net. Similarly, if you think you'd be a good guest, if you like work in brand and marketing strategy, or if you work in game design, or if you, I don't know, for any other reason, whatever you think, oh my God, I should absolutely be featuring on this show, don't hesitate, drop me a line. Last but not least, you can also follow me on Twitter. Last but not least is social media altogether. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @HippoWill, or you can look for the Ice Cream for Everyone page on Facebook and give it a like, so you can get some of the updates on a more regular basis. So now, that's about it for now. Without further ado, Kelly Rogala and Ian Fraser of the Go Game. Enjoy. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you very much for making time. Very, very excited about talking about you. Well, talking with you guys. Oh my God, I feel completely not ready and not prepared. I should have done some vowel exercises and some vocalizing before the recording button was pressed. It feels like one of those. Anyhow, there's just been a bit of a crazy day, but it's all good. Yeah, so I'm excited about talking to you guys about the Go Game. So, let's see, where should we get started? So we have Ian, you founded and started the Go Game, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And Kelly, you joined at some point later.
Yeah, I've been here. I've been a full-time game producer since January of this year and kind of orbiting, maybe for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I first came across the Go Game, and a few people working for the Go Game back in 2009 when I was at South by Southwest. And, back at the time, I was already just the first time I found out about it, impressed by the fact that you already had an iPhone application ready for the game. And then later down the line learned that not only did you have an iPhone application, but like you started working with phones way before that, right?
Yeah. Back in 2001.
Yeah. It was just like massively impressive from a technology standpoint. So I'm excited because, like my normal day job is looking at digital marketing and everything going on from technology and emerging technology. And the other side of it is gaming. So I typically have conversations with either game designers or people in marketing and technology. So whenever I have an opportunity to talk to people that kind of combine both, it's always very exciting.
Cool. Yeah, Ian's got some good stories from back in the day that like give me nightmares about like before there were even camera phones and you had to have both of them. I'm like, no, impossible. It's impossible.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to getting into it. But I guess starting from the beginning, do you want to give us a bit of background? Like where are you guys from? Where'd you grow up? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, you go first, Kelly. Sure. Well, I'm from San Francisco. I'm a rare San Francisco native. There's like less of us now, as the city, kind of gentrifies and changes with the tech boom.
Yeah.
So I grew up here and, have kind of had a varied background. And, before I was working for the Go Game, my last full-time job, I was a general contractor. And so I was doing, building and remodel work all around the city, with my father's company. And on the side, I was doing contract work for a summer camp for grown-ups. And so I started out doing building projects for them, and then became a summer camp counselor for grown-ups, like a couple weekends out of every summer. And that's how I got introduced to the Go Game. They sponsored the camp, and I was ready for a career change. Or just a start of any career or, something different. And there was a job opening. So it just ended up, I think from the beginning, it was pretty clear as a good fit for everybody. So I just kind of folded right in. Yeah.
So sorry, what's a summer camp for adults?
That's a camp called Camp Grounded. And, they're new, and it's like a lot of my peers and buddies of mine, that their whole spiel is a digital detox, and it's a Friday through Monday,
Sleepaway camp.
It's a sleepaway camp, just like you did when you were a kid. And it's almost identical to what you did when you were a kid. There's like songs around the campfire. And sports and like, rowboats and arts and crafts and talent shows and everything.
So is it like out in the forest kind of environment or?
Yeah, they do it up in Northern California, up in the Mendocino area, out in upstate New York. We've had one. We've had a couple in North Carolina and also outside of Austin. So all around the country at existing summer camp locations. But there's a couple gimmicks that really work pretty well, including so no cell phones, no digital technology, no drugs or alcohol. So it's a sober weekend.
Okay.
You can't use your real name. So everybody there has a nickname. You don't know who's who. Okay. You can't talk about work at all, and you also can't talk about age. So all of the normal things that you rely on when you meet somebody at a bar, where you like show up to somebody and you have a beer in your hand, like, hey, who are you? Oh, I'm Kelly. What do you do? Oh, I do this. And then they kind of walk away and you pull your phone out to distract yourself. Like, we take all of that stuff away.
Right.
So pretty righteous. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
How about you, Kelly?
Ian.
Yeah. Well, my background is probably the most real job I ever had before the Go game. I was an Outward Bound instructor for juvenile felons. And Outward Bound is a sort of experiential education school in the United States. And I worked for a little part of it in the state of Florida that was contracted to take groups of like 11 teenagers who had been in jail on month-long expeditions in the swamps. Wow. Instead of, sitting around in jail learning how to, steal cars better and play cards. So we would take them on these epic adventures for like 3 weeks in the woods, and teach them, a lot of hard skills, like how to navigate with a map and compass and not get lost or eaten by alligators. But also a lot of soft skills, like how to function as a group. What do you do when one kid's being a total dick and, punches the other one, and how do you move forward? And, it was like a really, really cool job. And it was almost like surreal, like in the construct and, the way that like you're on an adventure and you have to paddle 300 miles down a river, and consequences are very real. So that was a super epic job. I did that for like 4 years, and then really wanted to start a business with some of the kids, but realized I didn't know anything about business. And I found out about an organization in San Francisco called Juma Ventures, and they were working with at-risk kids, running Ben and Jerry's ice cream stores and teaching them how to how to operate a business and stuff like that. So I came out here to work with them. And it was during that time that I had a very vivid and bizarre dream, that kind of introduced the Go game to me. Sorry, there's my phone ring. Should have turned that off.
This is part of the job, is it's kind of always going. But actually, the way Ian describes his old job, I'm like, oh, that actually seems like a natural. Like, I want to do Outward Bound, but easier.
It sounds fascinating. Yeah. I was also going to ask, like, did you learn those kinds of skills first, like, or like, did you get to learn while you were doing it?
Kind of while I was doing it. I mean, I always liked I was not scared of the woods, nor was I scared of like big muscular tattooed kids. Yeah. But like, I was certainly not an expert in either, in either, medium.
And did you grow up like as a teenager? What kind of I was wondering what kind of, well, I guess upbringing, like, did you go out a lot of outdoorsy stuff as a kid as well, or?
Not really. I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, but I did spend a lot of time in the woods, by myself, like running around and with a BB gun and building forts and, doing all kinds of that stuff. And then I moved to New York City, which was, certainly not quite as fertile for woodsy exploration. I finished high school in New York City, but there actually were I remember learning that back then there was something called New York City Outward Bound School, and they would do these urban expeditions where they would set kids loose, like in the Bronx, with like $3 and a loaf of bread.
Really?
And it was like, you have to get from there to like the tip of Wall Street, the tip of Southern Manhattan. and you have all day to do it, and they'd have to get really inventive. And it was like fucking Escape from New York or The Warrior, but like positive and like affirming, So it was kind of cool. It was like made me think like, oh, you can kind of have an epic adventure anywhere. You don't need to be, in the woods, and you certainly don't need to have even wanted to do it in the first place. You could be on a forced march, but the state is making you do it because you've been a bad kid.
The consequences actually make it a little more fun.
So anyway, the back to the dream. So I had this dream in the middle of the night where I woke up and like started at 3 a.m. and started writing about it. And in the dream, I was basically like running around. I was in a Chinese restaurant in Chinatown being, yelled at by an old Chinese woman, and I couldn't understand what she was saying, but I had this weird device strapped to my head, and it was, I could hear other people's voices, including a woman who had said, hey, I'm also playing this game. And I said, it's some Chinese game and I'm very confused. She said, no, that's what they tell you it's called. It's really called the Go game. And I just played it all night long. I'm at Ocean Beach right now.
In your dream, you played it all night long?
No, this woman's voice. She was like, I played the game all night long and it changed my life. I was like, where are you? She's like, I'm at Ocean Beach. I was like, well, how do you play? She's like, I can't tell you. You got to just follow the clues. And then I then proceeded to have this like really crazy sort of like Amelie, like beautiful dream about sort of adventure being this constant thread right below reality, that like, and if you were willing to kind of believe that there might be a key under that rock, and then there was, the key did in fact start a cable car, which I realized I didn't even have to go on the cables. You could just drive it around, and I was like careening around and everyone on the streets was like, I was like picking people up and like one thing led to another. Anyway, I woke up like really possessed by this dream and was kind of journaling about it in the middle of the night. And, thank you, turning my phone off. And then I was just kind of telling friends about it. And my buddy Finn, who I played basketball with, who's the other co-founder of the Go game, I was just really possessed by this dream, and so was he. He was like, "This is like, this is cool." And I was like, the idea that like, whatever, there's this sort of adventure and sort of potential game layer, really, or just like a layer of sort of beautiful exploration, and how you could make that. And the funny thing is I think at the time I had a beeper for my job at the ice cream store, which I thought was pretty tech. And my thought was you could make this game where you just relied on payphones, which like many of your listeners may not know what those are, but they were these phones that anyone could use and get like contract, hepatitis from. Right. But you could also make free, toll-free calls. So you drive a 1-800 number and it doesn't cost anything. So I was thinking you could do a 1-800 number and then you'd call in and it would say like you'd get your next mission or your next clue. And it's like, if you think the answer is monkey, press 4. And you'd press 4. Yeah. Like, I think it's monkey. It's like, you're right. And then it would tell you where to go next. So Finn was like way ahead of the curve technologically. Apparently he was like the kid in high school. He's also 45 or however old he is. He was the kid with like the big Tandy laptop in high school, that like people were like, what's that thing? It was this giant like suitcase that he put on his desk.
Wow.
Tap away. So he was always kind of like an early adopter. And he, now back in, year 2000, he was like, we can do this. You don't need payphones. You can do this on cell phones. I was like, what's that? I mean, we knew what they were. I think they weren't the big white ones, but they were the candy bar phones. Like I think I had the Nokia, the Snake phone.
The Snake one. That was my first first cell phone. Yeah. Or was it the flip phone? Yeah. Anyway.
So he was like, you can do it with cell phones talking to the internet. Yeah. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? This is like, I don't even know what you're talking about. So he's like, anyway, he sort of explained it. It was very hard for me to get my arms around the idea, but I was like, okay, awesome. Let's go buy. I think we bought 5 Nextel. They were Motorola, like i50s or something with an antenna and like little screens. And Finn was like, I can make the phones talk to the internet, and then like we could, and then they'll tell you where to go next. He was like, you need to figure out what they should do. And so we began. And
at this point, sorry, just interrupting, but like before getting onto that, you didn't really have much, or did you have any kind of gaming experience? Or
Not
you really
really.
just like all started with a dream?
All started with the dream. I mean, I liked playing sort of silly dinner party games,
but also like the Outward Bound stuff. I mean, I've done stuff like that, and there's like the way that our games work. It feels a little bit closer to kind of like an adult field trip than like a role playing game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're playing a game in the sense that, of course, they're earning points and stuff, but just kind of like the gumption that it takes to show up and tell a group of adults to like follow clues around sounds like, it could be related to Outward Bound Trip.
But I wasn't a gamer, like a video gamer. I mean, I played like Mech Warrior a little bit.
Or Doom.
Or board games or any, that wasn't a particular interest that you were like, designing games or what's going on there or.
Not at all. No, it was like, sort of more like designing experiences really, was more, I think what I had been doing. Yeah. And I remember actually taking a wilderness first aid class called Woofer in America. It's like that's what you get. It's not like a EMT, but it's like you go for like 3 or 4 days and you do all this training, and then they set up. What's amazing is they set up these scenarios where you have to test what you've learned. So you all hike out into the woods, and they've convinced like 20 people to stage like a plane crash or like
someone pretends to have hypothermia.
Right. And so there are all these actors in the game. One woman has like a fake baby in her, in her shirt, and like ketchup, and there's like blood everywhere, and a bit like bloody baby comes out, and you have to like hold your shit together and she's handing you little pieces of paper that say blood pressure is dropping. And you're like, okay, blood pressure's dropping. She's probably in shock. So, and then you have to decide what to respond. And then she sends you more, gives you feedback. And it was really like impactful. I was like, that was coolest. I mean, it was terrifying.
Okay, so the Go game came out of a dream and a fake plane crash. I know. That's what I'm discovering.
Which actually, the fake plane crash, I mean, that was educational purposes, but it is a role-playing game in effect to put you in the middle of that kind of thing. And I get the, like kind of imagine, adrenaline or hormones pumping and the excitement of the moment. That's awesome to want to reproduce that.
Yep. And I think that like really our, what we've always kind of kept our, like the third rail of what we do is mostly like just that it's connected to sort of the real world. And certainly video games make your blood pressure go up, and but all of our games have had like a very tactile real world component. And that's kind of like, and in the beginning, you sort of had to, we always have said that, like the phones, you don't look at the phone much during the game. Like you look at your surroundings and you look at the other people playing, and like sort of as it should be, you're connecting with like your environment and the people around you and seeing all the wonderfulness that, or terror or whatever.
Well, actually, for all the people who don't know anything about it at all, like it might be worth just walking through the kinds of experience that happens when people get into it.
Totally. So would you want to talk about that? Like,
sure.
We have a bunch of different games. Like the original game was this, what we now call the classic Go game.
Yeah, the classic Go game. And
let's go for that.
Yeah, totally. That's kind of the entry level, or the entry point. And like a good one sentence descriptor is just a scavenger hunt on steroids.
Yeah.
So, you split a group up into teams. Each team gets a phone, and the phone will route them through like many different mission types, including your kind of standard scavenger hunt style location missions. Go here, figure something out when you're there, answer a clue or riddle about your surroundings. We'll customize it by putting in trivia that kind of like populates throughout, just straight up like pub trivia stuff. There's creative missions where teams do like a photo or a video challenge that isn't location specific, but they amp them up by going into a store or, a place of business, or using their surroundings to kind of be inventive and creative. And then we'll hire secret agents to be like paid actors that they discover in the course of the game. So there's all these kind of like different layers in there that that they'll discover, and they might, some of them might be very obvious, some of them might not. And then kind of the icing on top of the cake is because they've all been split up, Oh, they also have head-to-head missions, so they can see another team, challenge them to a competition that kind of gets randomly selected. But
is there a typical kind of size of teams and length of game kind of thing?
Team size, like 10 players max, 5 to 10 players is a good team size.
That's like per team, but we've done games where there are thousands and thousands of players,
that's
hundreds and hundreds of teams.
So hundreds of teams playing, but per team, one phone, about 10 people per phone, but I've done a game with 140 teams, 1,400 people.
Wow. I can imagine like that kind of size would be, from a production standpoint, and managing that kind of players would be fascinating and interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's barely controlled chaos.
Yeah.
You just kind of set them loose and just hope they don't set stuff on fire at a certain point.
Yeah. So, and we've had now like 15 years of kind of learning how to write the software better for those bigger groups. So, I'm sorry if we're just jumping all over the place.
No, it's fine. It's
back in the beginning, when we created our first games, they were quite a lot of moving parts. It would take us 2 weeks to create a game. We'd have like a rowboat hidden in the woods in Golden Gate Park that you had to find, that and then paddle it and read graffiti that we'd put under a bridge, and it was, and the games were
bespoke game experience.
Yeah. And the games were structured sort of linearly where, we'd be like, okay, so this team should do this one first, and we don't want them, intersecting with the other team yet. And so we would set up these tracks of games, which we realized like pretty quickly as the group sizes got bigger, like that it was going to be harder and harder to make that experience happen in a linear way. And Finn came up with this like really cool idea of what at the time was called the cluster. So instead of creating linear tracks, you'd just make a giant pool of challenges and set parameters on which team, like what you would load next based on a number of factors, giving a very similar experience. So, for example, you could put an actor in the park by the rowboat, and you really only want one team there at a time. Mm-hmm. So you just set a parameter like only one team can load this. And when a team loads it, it disappears from the cluster. Right. And then so other teams and it'll try to load other things. Anyway, it was a really ingenious way to structure the whole thing. And then that enabled us to really start scaling up and doing larger and larger groups. Wow. And then we also just figured out how to sort of like try to keep the spirit of the game of discovery and amazingness, like a rowboat under a bridge reading graffiti. But certainly like when you're running 10 of these a day across the country, the rowboats, you have to figure out how to give the rowboat feeling without like an actual rowboat.
There's less and less real rowboats.
Yes. So, but we liked, and certainly with actors, once you introduce actors into a game, people come back after the game with incredible stories of strangers that they were sure were in on the game, or weird interactions that they'd had where, just like sort of the serendipitous, silly stuff that happens once you're willing to suspend your disbelief and be like, maybe that UPS driver is in on the game. Yeah. And like he could be, and you've told them anybody could be. Yeah. So that's kind of fun. Anyway,
and typically the game is challenges, but it doesn't necessarily have a storyline, or does it? Is there like,
once in a while we'll do, sort of themed or, narrative games.
Yeah.
We got into the business of doing this. We earn 90% of our money from like corporate sort of offsite team building clients. This is the business that we got into really just at the request of friends who had played. They were like, you should do this for companies. Like we have to do this crap all the time. That's and it's never fun. And we were like, what do we really know about corporate team building? We really wanted to make like a product that was sort of early Foursquare, Facebook, like this sort of Burning Man on every street corner happening. You might be a player, you might be an actor, you have points, you're working maybe for a greater team. But this was in 2001, and this is 4 or 5 years before iPhones. And so we would, people started getting cell phones, and they'd be like, oh, you do cell phone games? They're like, yeah, you just have to hit mobile web. And I'd take their phone in my hand. They'd be like, don't hit mobile web. Like I get charged an arm and a leg for that. I'd be like, okay, sorry. We were like the only people with unlimited data. They'd be like, you just hit mobile web on your phone. I'm like, look at that. There's ESPN. They'd be like, dude, it's fucking $30 a month. It's free. But like, so we were, awesome. when we had this, nobody nobody was really using data back then. And like, I think like Blackberries kind of were, but people weren't just like hoovering up, silly stuff on their phones.
Or producing videos and photos left and right either.
Yeah. So I think pretty early on we realized like if we did want to do this as for a living, that we would probably have to, call our friends back and be like, hey, you want to do a game down? And our first game was for Yahoo. A friend worked there and they like had an amazing time. And I think that like there's something about what we do, which is like, there's something in the DNA of our products, which are like, they weren't really designed for corporate team building. They were designed to like try to show our friends how to have like an epically awesome Saturday.
Wow.
And I think that kind of it's so appreciated by a lot of the players where like it wasn't designed with like specific outcomes in mind. Like, how do we get Willem and Kelly to have more trust? So let's do a game where like right away when I introduce that game, it doesn't pass the smell test.
No.
People are like, yeah, this is like, no.
I'm going to go to the bar. They're like, I'll see you in 2 hours.
Yeah. I'm going to go play. Like I knew I shouldn't have come to this thing. And I think like we always try to keep that like not front and center, but there's sort of a wink in our intro.
Yeah, totally. The first thing I say, I'll be like, listen, I'm here. I'm going to be with you for the next couple hours. We're going to divide you up into teams. You're going to be working with each other, solving problems with each other. But we all know most important part about team building is earning points and beating the other teams, right? Yes. This is for points. And then everybody, as soon as you introduce fake points in the first 5 minutes, it's on, it's on. So.
All right, cool. I was actually just about to ask, like, what's the initial, suspicion phase of like, what is this kind of team building exercise and how long do I want to stick around?
Yeah. So it's like people are, really pleasantly surprised, and they're quite surprised, like right in the beginning. I think they just see us and they realize who we're dealing with. And,
but like in the beginning, like I think this is true with kind of any game too. Like there's what sets it apart is it's experiential. Like I could tell you as much as I could possibly tell you about the game Monopoly. I could explain Monopoly for hours and it just wouldn't matter until I kind of was like, okay, you know what? This is enough of the rules. Just roll the dice. And so there's an aspect for me of getting in front of a group of people that, are usually they're pulled away from projects or they're kind of like, why aren't we just having a dinner with each other?
Yeah.
And, sometimes even just kind of like looking at everybody and going like, okay, we're all in this together. Like I'm going to be your team building guy today, and they kind of like, okay, this guy is, they give you a little benefit of the doubt, but if I can give them the basic instructions and then get the phone in their hands and be like, okay, your game has started.
Yeah.
It's on. You got to figure it out. And then you see them at the end, and a couple hours later, it's just transformed.
Yeah.
So.
And you still have physical, or you said you have less kind of physical clues and props and stuff hanging around, right? Or.
Yeah, we have, you can run a pretty great game without any props, but we usually like to throw some stuff in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Like either a costume for an actor. We certainly used to leave and hide and stash and lock up a lot more stuff around the city. Things, magnets under mailboxes and things chained to, trees. And, we got in a lot of trouble.
I was just going to ask that. Interesting stories about getting in trouble with the city.
Yeah. 9/11 happened pretty quickly and then it changed, what
like toy guns running around the street.
People were comfortable with in our public sphere got, changed, and I remember the city of San Francisco. I think Finn or I were going into a parking garage where we had left our car before a game, and the bomb squad had the whole garage closed off, and we were like, oh boy, I think that might be for that left hidden under the car. So we have these like silver sort of like briefcases that we forgot that it was under the car that teams were supposed to find, and someone had seen it, and it was like they had a robot, poking it and stuff. And it was like, oh no.
I'm sorry, I just had a sound glitch. The sound glitch, like I missed exactly the word of what it was that you were missing that they were looking for.
That's the NSA doing that, man. That's not an accident.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's just the new paradigm. It was a silver briefcase that we had hidden a clue in that was under our car. and someone thought it was a bomb, and they closed the garage down. And when we arrived, the little robot was like poking it, and we were like, we somehow got out of there without getting in trouble. We were like, we are so sorry.
Wait, tell them you got to tell them, this is my favorite about the, cause it's funny for me to hear all these legacy stories. Cause I kind of I come in recently and my vision is like really different. And so like, I think my experience is everybody wants peak experience. Like people don't really care about like the junk or the swag they go home with. Uh-huh. They want to have this thing that kind of elevates them, and they love photos and videos of it. And really it doesn't take a ton of material to produce that. You can throw like a couple key items in there and it like blows people's minds. But hearing Ian talk, it's like you have to go through so much exploration and kind of start, and then you start trimming, and you got to trim and get all like, oh, we didn't need that. But tell them about the goldfish mission. This example of like the amount of moving parts that they used to throw in. This is my favorite.
Yeah. So we would, I think this often went along with like the homeless kid plant, like they had a kid with like a dog on a rope, and they had a bag full of more bags filled with water, and each bag had a goldfish in it. So it's like, when you get a goldfish at the store, it's like a plastic bag with a goldfish in it. So this person, however many teams there were, is how many goldfish this kid had in a bag.
Which is already awesome. It was just sitting on the street corner with like 20 goldfish. You
couldn't see it. It was like, if you go up to this kid and do something that, of course, you always go to the wrong people, but they finally find the right person. And the kid gives them a password or whatever to verify they're there. And then he's like, hey, you guys need to keep this. And he gives them the goldfish, and their phone now says, this is yours, and you must take care of this creature and keep it alive until the end of the game. And then right then the kid stabs the bag with a pen, and water starts leaking out. And it's like, a couple times, but it's like, and it's actually really easy to quickly figure out how to keep it alive. So people are running around town with like, a Starbucks cup and their goldfish in it. And they keep it alive. And then at the end of the game, we built these they're like clear PVC tubes that we'd fill with water, and then we'd line them all up together, and we'd have this goldfish race at the end. So in theory, like how well you had treated your goldfish and in what kind of peak condition it's returning at the end of the game will represent your team well.
You've even shaken it around.
Right. It's like, usually one or two were, didn't look so great by the end of the game, and like they definitely weren't going to win. And then we'd pour them into these tubes, and you'd have like hundreds of people screaming like it was like Thai boxing match or something. We'd be like, no hitting the floor, no doing this, and these goldfish would kind of get it into the tubes, and they'd just kind of be like, and then go really slow, and one would always like go almost to the end. And then turn around and like, oh! And then anyway, like this just shows really ridiculous. But then at the end of the game, there were like tubes and dead goldfish everywhere. And, it was terrible.
So how do you make it's right? It's like the rowboat thing. How do you get that experience in there without all the dead goldfish? It's a question of our time.
We didn't have too many dead goldfish, but there were a few mishaps where we might have forgotten a bag or two in a hot car.
Right. And so Kelly, like to the point you were talking about earlier, like now, what kind of stuff do you do now that represents or that gives that kind of peak experience that you were talking about that people really, really love?
Yeah, totally. Sure. So, so Ian's talking about this cluster and kind of the way you can design games. And so I'm basically sitting manipulating people without them really knowing that they're getting manipulated. Because if I give you a phone, you're kind of it feels like to you, you're on a linear path.
Yeah.
Because it's just one single thing after another is how you experience it. But I can kind of see what's coming.
Yeah. Because that's what happens. So the people who are playing are given a task or something or a place to go on the phone, and then you kind of figure that out, and then you're given new instructions, more or less.
And they're not given choice. So that's like kind of one of our key like principles is that you don't see a menu when you're playing the game. It's not like, oh, should we do like should we pick this one kind of mission, or should we pick that one? And then because immediately then people start strategizing and arguing like, no, let's do the high value ones.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, let's do a bunch of the easy ones. Whereas when it's when what Kelly's talking about, where it's like it just tells you where to go. It feels very like driven and story-ish.
Right. One password unlocks it, and you just get moved on to the next one. So I'll do stuff but I can prioritize that stuff, and I can see kind of what's in the queue and what's occupied and what's not occupied. So like one example is I'll hire agents, and I'll have one actor be like a dance instructor.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, our games are just about 2 hours. I'm like, for the first hour, I'm going to make this like a super high priority, and I'll give her instructions. And I've done this. I'll give her instructions. Okay, every team that comes to you, I want you to teach them the exact same dance routine, like the exact same 8-count routine to the exact same song. So they'll come in, they'll be doing like Bruno Mars, Uptown Funk, and, spin, spin, turn, left hand, right hand, down, whatever. And so they'll do it, and she gives them a password, and they don't know any other teams have done it. They don't have any idea of kind of what's coming next. And then I'll see, okay, like 5 out of 6 teams have done that mission, and I'll queue up another mission and like throw it right to the beginning of the line. That's like, hey, there's a B girl waiting for you outside of the Montgomery Street BART station, which is like the biggest station in our financial district. People, like hundreds of people coming out every 7 minutes. So they'll go meet up with my B girl, who's sitting there with like a huge jam box. All the teams have gotten directions to go there at the same time. They all show up. And my other plants, like, I heard you guys got some sick dance moves for me. She has Uptown Funk queued up. She'll put it on, and then all of a sudden they're part of like a flash mob.
Oh, wow.
Like, and they have no clue the other teams have learned the same routine as them. And they're like, wait a second, everybody here knows this. And now it's like kind of safety in numbers. So you have people like coming out of a BART station that are like randomly seeing this flash mob dance crew. And these people didn't even know they were going to be doing it. And then it's over. I mean, then it's over like literally in a minute or less. And, that's a peak experience, and it doesn't make goldfish.
I definitely get, the kind of high energy experience that you would definitely remember. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Just like playing with like your fellow planet residents in a really fun, unexpected way, like whether it's like, having to come up with a sign to hold up on the side of the road, trying to encourage getting cars to honk at you.
Yeah.
The results makes me think of like similar to Improv Everywhere kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, totally.
Right.
It's a lot. It's like they were early on. We were like, oh, those people are real kindred spirits for sure.
And it's just the difference between something that's like an art piece and something that's like a corporate team. The Improv Everywhere is basically like a time-based interactive art piece that happens and ends, and ours is a little more just ongoing.
And we want to like, our goal is really to bring like kind of joy and like, I don't know, maybe silliness or just a different perspective, so that when those people are coming out of BART, they're seeing something that's like just different, and like, and it gives them hope, like, wow, like maybe the world is like this different, or what was that, or and not, but certainly not like scary or sinister, because it's really, I think, easy to go that way too. Or also, I don't know, like super, I don't know if like biting and mean, and
just like douchey.
Yeah, I think we did. I feel like in the beginning we definitely had some more of that sort of rebellious, Fight Clubby, rabble-rousey kind of stuff, which I still am a big fan of, and I think it's great.
Like as an example, like what do you
mean?
Like
a billboard, like Billboard Liberation Front, kind of like amend a sign, like go take a billboard and like mess it up and change the meaning, find this which for companies, like they're, obviously you can't do anything illegal.
Yes.
But fun, but still a way to do that somehow, which in a fun way, like with a crazy sign that you have to hold up, and so cars are driving by, like, why does that sign? What are those people doing? It's not, it's just whatever they decide to write.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the.
And did you have sometimes like or in the early days some experiences or some games or some people that ended up having a bit of a either negative or too competitive or that kind of darker experiences that you're talking about? Or
usually there were, I think sometimes the sort of innocent bystanders probably felt more taken aback than the players. The players, It was so chaotic, and they were bringing joy and bringing confusion to other people. But I know there was one story where we were doing a game in Berkeley, and one of our friends who's become a real game guru is Jane McGonigal. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yes, I had noted that like she had worked with you for a short bit, and I saw her in London recently. I have a copy, like a signed copy of her last book. I only had a quick chat. I don't really know her, but
She's awesome, and she's great. She was helping out and writing a bunch of our missions, and she was living in Berkeley at the time, and so she said we came up with this idea, like, let's use your apartment. And teams will have to break into your apartment, and the door was unlocked, but it was that you were given instructions to, like, how to buzz into her building, go up to the third floor into her apartment, and then learn everything you can about the people that live there, because later on you might be tested or you might need to know that information. So, we thought it was awesome, and it went really well. I mean, like, up until about halfway through the game, the door frame of her apartment did get kicked in because a team decided, like, not to try to see if the door would open. They just went straight for the, like, crime scene investigator. Bam! Kicked it in. Of course, the whole thing came down. But on another team, apparently, and we said very explicitly, go to apartment 317. And they were on the first floor, and they were walking by an apartment, and they had a doormat that said "Go away." And they were like, "That's it. Go away. Go game." And they opened the door, and it is not locked. And now they're in someone's apartment they're not supposed to be in, and it's an older woman making lunch. And they walk in and they all plop down on her couch and sort of sit on her counter as she's making, and they're like, "We need to learn everything about you." As people are starting to open her drawers and look through things, and she said, "I don't know who you are." And they were like, wink, wink. Like, they're like, "Yeah, try to flip the mattress. Is there something in here?" They're all writing down, "Is that your granddaughter?" Writing all this stuff down.
Oh my God.
She finally convinces them to leave. And it's like, "You must go." And so they leave. But then they all decide, as they're on their way to the third floor, that's probably part of it. We need to go back there. She definitely was in. So they all walk back into the apartment, and we're like, "We're not leaving until you tell us everything about you." And I think she might have called the police, and because there were these people in her apartment.
Yeah, that's because for her, yeah.
Anyway, so it's not like we wanted those outcomes, but, like, once you set people loose in the city with directives and they have their own interpretation, it's like you never know what can happen. It was really weird. And, like, for us too, like, I remember one of the first things, there was a woman who was helping us, and I forget her name. I remember her as the clown, as she was a clown. She wrote some of our first missions, and I think one of the first lines when they started reading the phones were, it was just a tongue-in-cheek thing: "Drop your pants and dance. It's the time for the go game," or whatever. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like 100 people all pulled their pants down and just started dancing. And it was not pretty, man. It was like people were like underwear down. It was like, why are they doing that? And it's like all these other people in the park, children and dog walkers. And there's like 100 people with, like, their junk hanging out. Yeah. And it was like, what's going on? It was like you had to be really careful what you wrote and what you said.
I'm convinced it's points. Take anything and tell people there are points on the line. It's like, listen, I've never met you before.
Yes.
Up until 5 minutes ago, like, your life was just a normal life, and now I've told you, like, you can earn 100 points, and it's like you get thrown back to whatever, like, however you felt about points when you were like 7 years old.
Yeah.
It just comes flooding back, and you're like, I'm going to win points. And it's like, they don't correspond to anything. They're not Bitcoins, nothing like that, but people just go nuts.
This is really interesting. And I have a couple of points. First, this kind of stories, which are fantastic stories. Thank you so much for sharing. But, I would imagine you probably have some kind of, like, really, really tight disclaimer forms for people to sign now before they start, or that kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. Bulletproof.
Yep. Them and their lawyers. And I definitely, and when you're doing your intro, I mean, what you really learn to do is set expectations really specifically. And so I'll say things to them like, "Listen, give me a call if you get stuck," but, like, and you try to make it kind of tongue in cheek and funny, but I'll say things like, "If you call me and you're like, 'Hey, Kelly, like, what's up with this mission where this guy with, like, a gun and a badge threw me in this jail cell? Like, what's the clue to get out of here?'" I'm like, that totally really happened, man. Like, I didn't hire any police officers today. And people will laugh it off, but they'll get the point, Yeah, and also just telling them, like, read, like, grown-ups have a surprisingly hard time reading things all the way through, and their reading comprehension, especially for Americans, is, like, incredibly low. Wow. You're like, okay, read this out loud verbatim to the rest of your team.
All the way to the bottom.
All the way. You can't just read it and regurgitate it and people will read one sentence and just take off running. Like, it's, so we've learned kind of over time how to really come up in the beginning, so.
But at the same time, we do want them to kind of mess up a little bit and be like, maybe go to the wrong place. Yeah. And so it's like a fine line of because if it's just like, go here and do this, that's not nearly as fun as go here and try to figure out which is the thing you're supposed to do. Yeah. And you might be right and you might be wrong. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing.
And that's also part of the context and part of the really exciting thing that makes it, because to Kelly's point earlier about the points, there's the competition aspect that is definitely essential. But the other aspect of there's the competition, there's the different games and the challenges, and that a little bit of chaos and a little bit of uncertainty and a little bit of magic on that side of things is really, really exciting too. Cause I was going to say, in the past few years or however it is, since that whole idea of gamification started, having badges, having points, and suddenly, and I have experienced that in marketing and advertising where suddenly everybody was like, oh my God, we're just going to add points and suddenly we'll have tons of people participate in our promotion or whatever. And you're like, no, it doesn't work like that. So there is a base and a super important point about points and playing a game and competing from that perspective. But there's the context of the uncertainty and the excitement and maybe some other ingredients. Are there other ingredients, would you say, or that make it really exciting and that make it work?
Oh yeah, for sure. Besides points, I mean, peak experience. Mm-hmm. I think you need to have sort of buy-in on some level, whether it's if it's a corporate group or, a good example is at a big user conference. So we'll do games for thousands of people at a user conference and it's intended to increase networking and have more fun and do a game layer. And and if you can sort of get someone to endorse it at the top or you get key people to start playing, I think that'll help drive engagement. Yep. Prizes, prizes help.
There's also this, just from a more kind of theoretical perspective, I've found this relationship, there's this sweet spot that you have to hit where it's not too complicated and it doesn't take a lot of explanation time, but it's not so simple that it gets boring. And the simpler it is, Pokemon Go is so incredibly simple that you can have billions of daily active users, but then it drops off because it's just a single step thing. And then you're also not playing a game of Risk where it's or Dungeons and Dragons where it's here's the thing. So you have to kind of, it has to be familiar in the sense that okay, well, I know what a scavenger hunt is and I know how to use an iPhone. And I get the idea, the more missions I complete, the more points I'll get, and I'm in a team. And all of that stuff doesn't take any explanation. And you can kind of give people a teaser and some parameters, but then you kind of want to let them discover how to play the game themselves. So at a certain point, you just stop taking questions. And you're like, okay, listen, here's the phone. I've been talking for 10 minutes. Your game has started. Hit go. And they just start reading instructions. And so there's I think one of the things over the last 15 years is through trial and error, you kind of hit that really awesome sweet spot where 9 out of 10 employees kind of are a little skeptical. They get their kind of issues handled basically, and then they discover that they like it just because they try it.
I would say the secret ingredient in what Kelly's saying is and this sounds sort of trite, but it's fun. And I think that fun is sort of equal parts unexpected, and I don't know, just intangible. So a scavenger hunt isn't it's kind of fun for what can happen along the way, but ultimately, I'm just going to go run around and collect things, or catch the Pokemon, a list. And I think what we try to do is, we really vary the sequence of missions that teams are getting. So we try to make sure that they're not doing 4 kind of boring go find this statue missions in a row. Yeah. Because that's not fun. But one statue mission and then that leads to this weird actor, or then they have to execute this incredibly complicated video that they're filming. And all those variations are really fun. Yeah. And also we try to create content that appeals to like a very wide personality type. So in each game, our goal is that like the sort of the quiet, like nerdy girl who like is into like escape rooms, she gets to be the hero because like there's this really complicated math thing. And then the like gregarious, dumb guy who's not scared to go sing opera in Starbucks, like he gets to be the hero in the next mission. So that's like really, I think, one of the sort of secret recipes of how to make something fun. And it's like really fun to see your teammates like be the hero. Where you're like, dude, you can't climb that tree. It's like, oh yeah. And then she takes her shoes off and you're like, she's like a monkey. Like, that's amazing. You're the best, and then the next challenge, someone else is doing something different. So, but I would say, awesome. Just really, it's sort of like that fun. That's how you make something. And it's really hard, and I think people talk about it a lot, but like, and it's what's fun for one person isn't fun for the next person. But I think another thing is doing stuff in a team is really like, it's so much more fun, I like, or it's easier to hit the fun target, I think, maybe, versus like designing a game for an individual at a user conference. And it's just a guy from like Sweden walking around, like looking at paintings in a conference center, and then deciding like, now try to go find someone from another country.
We like Swedes. They can have fun too.
They're awesome. But you put like three, and then if it's four Swedish guys together, like they're gonna kick that game's ass. You know what I mean? So I think there's something about like sort of being in a group is sort of easier.
So there's quite a bit of preparation involved before you start, and learning the kind of people that are going to be participating as well, or not necessarily. You just account for a wide variety of people.
We do. We talk to the clients and we customize the game a bit. I would say also it's universal human beings are, whether they're engineers or they're salespeople or they're high school girls basketball players. They all like a lot of the same stuff, but we fiddle with the knobs a little bit.
Yeah, totally. And everybody, it's like you get people out of the office and you put them in like a downtown zone. And I think most people, if I was like, go spend 2 hours like exploring, mostly you get the bystander effect. Yeah. And it's like you kind of walk by a storefront and you observe and you go, oh, that looks nice. Or you kind of walk by a mural and go like, I saw a mural. And so it doesn't take too much customization. Everybody basically, likes it. If you say like, okay, go there, find something and then interact with it and engage with it like one step beyond what you would normally do on your lunch break, that's totally universal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I'm just conscious of time. Just conscious of time. So I usually finish with a couple of what I'm like around, I'm calling the cool down questions because it's, and usually starting with an ice cream related question because it's the Ice Cream for Everyone podcast. That's right. And I thought it was brilliant, Ian, that you actually worked around a number of Ben and Jerry's ice cream shops back in the day. So I was wondering if, well, I guess the easy one is whether you have a favorite flavor of ice cream. And then I'm wondering if you have any interesting anecdotes about working around Ben and Jerry's shops.
Okay, hold on. Let me guess. I'm going to guess Ian's favorite flavor, and then you can guess mine. I'm looking for all of you out there on the radio. I'm looking directly into his eyes. He's got gorgeous hazel eyes. He's a little bit unshaven. And you're a cookie dough guy.
Not correct.
Fuck, damn it.
I was gonna go. I'm always like it's either Chubby Hubby or Peanut Butter Cup.
Oh, well,
I like the Peanut Butter Cup.
Yeah, Peanut Butter Cup is the shit. Okay, Kelly, I'm gonna guess you're that's all over your face. New York Super Fudge Chana.
No way, fudge. No way. I can't remember. I grew up in San Francisco.
Yeah.
No. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Cherry Garcia for sure. Cherry Garcia. Out of all the Ben Jerry's. If I had to choose out of anything, green tea ice cream.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
This is my favorite ice cream flavor.
All right.
Working with Ben and Jerry's was awesome, and it was like I got it, discounted ice cream. And then what was kind of awesome was that the kids who worked at the shop mostly were from like a really rough part of San Francisco, like Bayview, Hunters Point. And the shop that I ran was in the marina, which is basically all the like yuppies,
stroller moms,
and like sorority girls. So the culture clash was amazing to see, like, the sorority girls come in for their, milkshakes being, given what was, pretty rough customer service. And I remember one time with this kid, I shouldn't say his name because
no, don't say his name.
The customer was asking for samples and he kept sucking his teeth. Oh man, and just really put out, man. It was so put out to have to keep giving this guy samples. And then, and I could hear him, and he got kind of rude. And I was like, oh, I got to talk to this kid. And then he served the ice cream, which weighed about 4 pounds. We'd been practicing, like, you don't want to put too much on the cone. You had to hold it with 2 hands. This customer like won the lottery with this, like, double ice cream. And then as he sort of like, he might have even forgotten to ring him up, but he did say, as the man was leaving, or the woman was leaving, having had the worst customer experience of her life, he ran after them with the tip jar and said, "Hey, you want to leave a tip?" And she goes, "No." Walked out with her, vat of ice cream.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Ice cream for everyone, no matter how you get it.
Yeah.
No matter how
you might luck into one of those Ben & Jerry shops and get over scooped.
Yeah. Wow. And how about you, Kelly? Anything in your memory bank about an ice cream related story, just by any chance? You never know.
Yeah. Actually, ice cream, the biggest, association I have with ice cream is the 89 earthquake.
Uh-huh.
The Loma Prieta earthquake in San Francisco, which was a monster earthquake, and I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And my dad had taken me out of school early
because of the World Series.
Because I think it was because of the World Series, or sometimes he would just pick me up and just be like, "We're leaving," and we just so we went to this ice cream shop on Geary called Joe's Ice Cream Parlor. Still there, family owned business, been there forever, and the guy would like make his own ice cream, and it was like kind of way like old school San Francisco.
Wow.
And I got an ice cream cone. And then the earthquake hit, and I didn't really know about earthquakes, but my dad picked me up and he put me on his shoulders and ran outside.
Yeah.
Which is not, just for like your listeners, like not really what you're supposed to do when an earthquake. It's like get in the doorway or crouch down. Don't run through like next to a plate glass window.
Right.
And I didn't realize how big the earthquake was. Like the street had split apart and all the lights were flashing, and when I found out, I was like, what happened? It's like, there's a major earthquake. And then my first response was, I'm glad my ice cream didn't fall off the cone. It was the only thing I was concerned about. It was like, I saved my ice cream from the earth.
Which sounds like a normal concern for a 5-year-old who doesn't really know about earthquakes. I mean, definitely the ice cream is like the most important thing for sure.
Totally safe. Yeah. Wow. So it didn't really bother me that there was an earthquake. My ice cream was fine.
Cool. All right. So wrapping up, just to make sure everybody who might be listening, or everybody who is listening, you run games all over the United States? Is that right?
Yeah, all over the world.
All over the world. All right, cool. Yeah. So anybody who's listening, they can go check the website, or what's the best way to?
Yeah, the website is thegogame.com, and they can message us or check out our games.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Cool.
We'll be there in jumpsuits, ready to set you loose. No goldfish.
Perfect. All right. I hope you enjoyed that. That was the first episode of 2017. Last episode recorded in 2016. First episode published in 2017. Wasn't that a great episode? Amazing stories. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed it. I'm repeating myself now. Anyhow. And if you did enjoy it, well, I might as well repeat myself one more time. How about sharing it with a friend? I mean, it makes such a difference. I'm publishing and taking my time. I really enjoy doing it. I've had positive feedback from some of the people listening, but essentially, I just want more people to be listening to this. So how about you share it to a friend? Or post it on Facebook or post it on Twitter. If you've enjoyed it, give me a shout. Or if you have feedback, give me comments, ask questions. Please don't hesitate asking me questions. Or if you think there's something I should be or could be improving, I'm always happy to have some, constructive criticism as well. Don't worry. You can give me a shout out on Twitter. My name is @HippoWill. That's HIPPOWILL. Or you can post a comment on the Ice Cream for Everyone page on Facebook, leave a review on iTunes, send me an email with some questions, whatever you want to put there. So that's Willem, WILLEM, at icecreamforeveryone, everything spelled out, .net. Willem at icecreamforeveryone.net. Last thing, let's see what else. There's going to be some more episodes coming up, so watch out for that, probably next week or the week after. I'm still working on that. And then that's about it. Have a great afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time it is for you right now. Have fun. Bye-bye.